This is the Speak For Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. Draft is over, back to the NBA playoffs, and Whitlock's back in his chair. Here we go. Cowherd tells you the reason we have adoption agencies is to find kids stable homes, and no adoption agency would ever let Joe Mixon go to Cincinnati. Whitlock says why Deshaun Watson is under a lot more pressure than Mitchell Trubisky. Joel Klatt disagrees, so do I, by the way. And there is only one excuse in H-Town, and it's quarterback play. Fox basketball expert Chris Broussard believes the Clippers should have a real GM, and it's time to redo the front office in LA. Former NBA champ Eddie House gives us some inside intel on why this Celtics team has been successful and able to rally in the playoffs. And lastly, we talk a little bit about Deshaun Kizer and if he should be the Browns' opening day starter. Ready for Speak For Yourself? Cowherd and Whitlock, take it away.
All right, welcome to the show. We'll tell you why Deshaun Watson is under more pressure than any quarterback in the draft.
And why the Browns should be happy they just screwed up the draft again. Speak For Yourself starts right now.
Browns did a good draft.
If you want to get Sam Darnold, they did a good thing.
All right, it's Monday. Welcome back. Welcome to the show. We're joined today by Hall of Famer Chris Carter and Fox college football analyst Joel Klatt. Let's start with the NFL draft, where the Cincinnati Bengals made waves on Friday, taking Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon in the second round, despite Mixon's arrest for assaulting a woman in a restaurant in 2014. Here's Coach Marvin Lewis on the controversial pick.
We've done such a lot of work regarding Joe Mixon, throughout the entire process this year. And, based on all the time, all the research, we felt that we can continue to move forward.
I learned a lot about situations, being in certain areas that you shouldn't be around. And, basically I did a lot of community service, did a lot of counseling, and I'm still seeking it. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm very excited on being here and having the opportunity to, redeem a lot of things.
All right, Colin, the home of Vontaze Burfict, Adam Pac-Man Jones, Cincinnati. Good fit, bad fit for Joe Mixon?
Well, I don't think it's ideal. I mean, we have adoption agencies, and adoption agencies were created to find stable homes for kids who have had some chaos in their lives. The NFL doesn't have an adoption agency. This would probably not be an ideal fit. I always kind of, when people say, hey, we did our homework on him. Well, I got homework too. It's called a piece of video. Homework or no homework, I don't think this is the organization ideally. Here's the easiest way to put it. When that happened, I happened to be away from a TV for about 10 minutes in the draft. I was gone for the 10 minutes that he got picked, first couple days, and my texts exploded. Every friend I had went, of all the teams. And my friends, some are casual sports fans. So there's a brand with Cincinnati, and it played to the brand.
I think this is high risk for Marvin Lewis. There's going to be a lot of attention on Joe Mixon. We saw with Greg Hardy, misspoken words become controversial. If you try to crack a joke at the right or wrong time, it can spin out of control. Marvin Lewis is on a one-year contract or on the last year of his contract. I get the urgency there to try to win, but I think he's added a lot of a distraction to his football team.
Well, the NFL for a long time has been in the rehab business as far as players' image, and have accepted people with checkered past. The reason why I will accept it as a good fit is because one of your favorite words, it's authentic. Mike Brown, I grew up 30 miles from Cincinnati in Middletown, Ohio. Less than 5 years ago, I sat down with Mike Brown. They had brought me in, him, Marvin Lewis, to speak to the team, how to be a better leader, how to get over the hump. And Mike Brown sat me down and told me that's one of the worst decisions he ever made was when Philadelphia decided to let me go. He said he had already missed me in the draft. Going to Ohio State, growing up in the backyard, it's one of the biggest mistakes he made professionally because he thought, and he had the instincts to think that I was going to get it together. Just told me that like 5 years ago. So for me, the foundation, whoever's going to be the Bengals coach is going to have to be in the rehab business, because the owner, this is what he wants to do. He believes kids should get a second chance. So that's why they've cultivated a culture there where a number of players have gotten their second and third shot.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to this for me, because you can talk about just the football side of the fit. You know, then you can talk about the character side of the fit. And obviously it's somewhere in the middle, because you can't have one without the other, right? Then there's the whole aspect of, if you personally have to ask yourself, if you're the coach or the GM or the owner, are you okay going home at night and telling your daughter or your wife who you just selected? There's that aspect of it. And listen, that's a personal decision. So Cincinnati goes ahead and they step off that ledge and go ahead and take Joe Mixon. Now all I can do is look at the fit. And I had a great coach in Gary Barnett at the University of Colorado, and he used to start off every single season with, you have to know who you are before you can know where you're going and how you're going to get there. All right? And so that's to tell you that I think every team has a culture and a personality.
Yes, they do.
And for me, Joe Mixon in that culture and personality doesn't fit. This is an organization that hasn't won a playoff game since 1990, in large part due to character and personality deficiencies. Look at what happened against Pittsburgh a couple of years ago.
Personal fouls, bad decisions.
Bad decisions in the heat of the moment, too. Chris, I mean, you're talking about guys, and that's where I get nervous for Joe Mixon, is that now he's surrounded by a culture that's not necessarily a culture that's going to help him in that rebranding process.
You know, Kansas City right now and Houston are the two teams in the league that we always say, man, their rosters are great. Right? Like great rosters. They maybe, you know, maybe they don't have the perfect quarterback. Cincinnati before them for about a 7-year period was that team we were like, man, they got talent everywhere.
Yeah.
Why didn't they win? They won for something you and I have discussed. Dumb penalties. Players there wasn't a sense of sort of rising to the moment. Like, you're right on about this. New England's culture is Belichick's only going to take guys he wants to coach.
Yep.
When Bill Polian ran the Colts and Peyton Manning, similar to New England. The culture of Cincinnati does not feed into playoff wins and great moments in close games.
Get it. I think, Chris, I love his point about Mike Brown and why some people get involved in football.
Yeah.
And it's not just about making money. It's not just about being a celebrity. It's not about winning games all the time. And so when you look into Mike Brown's heart, as Chris, he sounds like the typical football coach in Little League, Pee Wee football, in conservative
Just
cities
like
like
dad,
Cincinnati,
wants to help
and
people.
Indianapolis. Tom Osborne, and again, Tom Osborne wanted to win in Nebraska and got involved with some kids. But at the heart of it, and the guy Bill McCartney at Colorado, there's a lot. And so I just want everyone, and I know it's easy to beat up on Joe Mixon, and I get it. I'm just going to tell you the life I live and the guys I've seen football transform.
Yeah.
One of my best friends stood outside. We got into an argument with some guys. He was holding a Uzi. I didn't know he had it, holding a Uzi. This is one of the best human beings I know, one of the best fathers I know. I've seen football and life transform him, and so I don't want to give up on Joe Mixon, and I don't want people to either.
Elsewhere in the draft, multiple teams traded up to take quarterbacks. This was supposed to be a weak quarterback draft, most notably the Bears giving away the store maybe to get Mitchell Trubisky. And the Texans move up to take Deshaun Watson. Trubisky has already been booed, I'm not laughing, I promise, by angry Bulls fans, while Watson goes to a team looking to win right now. All right, Whitlock, who's under more pressure, Watson or Trubisky?
I think it's without question Deshaun Watson. He's in Texas. He wears number 4. He damn near looks a little bit like Dak Prescott. His name starts with a D like Dak Prescott. The Texans have a roster that's allegedly built for the Super Bowl. He's going to show up, and they're expecting him to do exactly what Dak Prescott did, far more pressure.
I completely disagree. I think about this, in the last 20 years, and I know Trubisky was a second pick, but one quarterback's been taken number 1 in 20 years. Stayed with the franchise for 15 years and been a Hall of Famer, level player, Peyton Manning. Once you get drafted like 1 or 2 as a quarterback, you're the player of the draft. Nobody's going to remember O.J. Howard, tight end, Tampa Bay.
But that was a great pick.
But,
It really was.
That's a great
but
pick.
Mitchell Trubisky is going to be, of all the quarterbacks, the guy. and we're going to sit back. Deshaun Kizer may not make the Browns.
See, I don't see it that way in recent drafts because I think Jared Goff and Carson Wentz kind of share that mantle from last year's draft. And I absolutely think that all three of these quarterbacks selected in the first round are going to share that mantle, the quarterbacks of the draft in 2017. I'm with Whitlock here. I think the most pressure is on Deshaun Watson because, at least in Chicago, Trubisky's not going to be asked to win football games right away.
How do we know that?
Well, they're going to ask because the regime is going to be changing if he doesn't. I understand that. But this is, CC, this is a divisional / AFC championship ready roster right now in Houston.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now, which means that he's got to play on that level or else. So for me, the pressure on that level is greater on Deshaun Watson. Now, here's the caveat to this. He's the one quarterback that, if you would ask me before that, he wasn't my highest rated quarterback, okay? Full disclosure. But if you were to ask me which one was ready for that type of pressure, it would be Deshaun Watson. So I think it's a great fit for Deshaun, even though the pressure is great.
So there's more pressure on Mitch. I mean, you want to go to the Cubs game? You want to go to the Bulls game and get booed? Ooh, them the same people going to be booing you at the Bears game. And the kid is not ready to play. He's going to get the coach fired.
Yeah.
Okay?
He will.
So let's put that on top of it.
But is that really his
GM that made the call?
Okay, wait a minute.
Or is
he's
his
getting
terrible
fired.
roster moves over the last 3 years, right?
Okay,
I mean,
yes, but he's inheriting. He is the leader of that. The quarterback, they weren't authentic with Mike Glennon, and they didn't tell him they were going to draft a quarterback. So there's a lot of pressure. I would much rather be Deshaun Watson.
Listen,
I would much rather be in Houston.
Unrealistic expectations on Trubisky because you will know this analogy. There are only a few quarterbacks in history that can say that they're the refrigerator in the room and not the glass of water. And let me explain. A glass of water is going to turn the temperature of its surroundings. The refrigerator turns everything inside of it into its temperature, okay? There are only a few players that can walk into a locker room and be the refrigerator. You're coming with me or else. Okay, and none of these guys necessarily are going to walk in there and change the culture. So for Trubisky, he's walking into a bad roster, a team that stretched to get him at 2. Was it a good trade or not? Probably not. I don't know if it's his fault if they get fired. Is it really his fault?
Yeah, but that, to me, that creates more pressure.
Yes.
I mean,
that's the reality.
Okay, I don't like pressure. I like habits. I eat the same breakfast, the same lunch. I'm not a pressure guy. I fold under the pressure.
Aren't you setting yourself up for failure, though? Because remember now, happiness equals reality minus expectations. If you set your expectations way too far out of whack, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Let's just. But I'm saying, if you ask me, which I'd rather be, I would go down South Houston. They like their sport. Chicago, they win.
I'd much rather be with Bill O'Brien. He's got job security, and they have players. The quarterback level play there has been so bad, Deshaun can achieve that. Now, Chicago, he's going to get knocked around.
But there's only one excuse in Houston. Okay. Literally, there's only one excuse in Houston, quarterback play. Because the roster's ready. In Chicago,
but you're replacing Brock Osweiler.
Listen, I've been a local columnist. To me, the general manager, the people that made the decision in Chicago, they would have a big bullseye on them, not Trubisky. It's like, you signed Glennon, and then you turned around and traded up to get this guy? That would be my conversation in the paper, on radio, on the internet, every day. Not Trubisky, the people that make the decision.
But people in Houston, he has friends. They'll be rooting for him. The people boo Trubisky. Glennon doesn't like him. So, by the way, the new GM is going to say, I didn't want this guy. Yeah. So he's going to get a new GM.
John Fox had to tell a lie that he knew they were going to trade for him. He didn't know.
You tell me in Chicago.
He didn't know.
You tell me in Chicago, who's got Mitchell Trubisky's back? Nobody. The GM's out.
Who's got Goff's back in L.A.?
Actually, Les Snead, because if he's a bust, Les Snead's in trouble. They fired the coach first. If Goff's a bust this year, Snead's in big trouble.
So it's the same people. The decision makers are tied to Trubisky just like
there's a lot of people in that LA Rams office that need Goff to succeed. Like a lot of them.
All right, I don't want to talk about Goff.
All right, welcome back. Joined now by Fox NBA guru Chris Broussard, NBA champ Eddie House, who today informed me he's played with virtually every good NBA player in the last 20 years in the league. You were around a long time. Let's start to the NBA, where the Clippers season came to an abrupt end yesterday after they barely showed up to Game 7 against the Jazz. Clippers' future is now up in the air. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin set to become free agents. Rumors swirling about Doc Rivers moving on, and here's Doc after the game.
I'm sure everyone will have their own suggestions. You know, we've been reading about our obituary for about 3 months now, so I'm sure everyone will have that.
Have you given any consideration to your early termination option?
No, I haven't. We just lost probably like 20 minutes ago.
All right, Whitlock. What should the Clippers do this offseason? Blow it up?
Yeah, I think you got to blow up the big three and Doc Rivers. Look, I thought that performance yesterday was embarrassing. They no-showed on Doc. And I think the players just cast their vote. They've tuned out Doc Rivers. They don't believe in the mission. And so, yeah, you got to blow the whole thing up.
You ever watch like a Netflix series or a movie and you heard it was great and like you're halfway through it and you're like, I'm waiting for it to get great? That's how I felt about The Wire, by the way.
Oh, no way. No
whole
way.
new topic.
No way.
Okay.
No way.
I knew that would get Whitlock worked up. But this team's 22-27 in the playoffs when they're all healthy. I'm waiting for this team, that I've been told. I'm like, I'm 4 years into this thing. And I think you get to a point where you turn that series off or you turn that team off. And I do agree with Jason. I watched that first half and I'm like, oh, they've raised their hands. They voted in the room before Doc got there. They didn't show up.
Well, I'm blowing it up, but I'm not blowing up the team. I'm blowing up the front office. I am getting rid of Doc. These president/coaches never work. Stan Van Gundy in Detroit hasn't worked. Mike Budenholzer in Atlanta, that's headed in the wrong direction. The only one you can say that worked is Popovich, but R.C. Buford is a real GM. So it's not Popovich running everything. But if I took away the presidency from Doc, he's obviously not just going to want to be the coach. That's just too much of an ego, bust up to handle. So I would get rid of the front office, get rid of Doc, look at Jerry West. I look at Travis Schlenk from Golden State. Jerry West is here in L.A.
I know, that would.
The Lakers don't want him. How about bringing him to the Clippers? They're already better than you. Now you got one of the greatest executive ever. I look at Troy Weaver in Oklahoma City. As far as coaches, if I could get Jerry West, I'd look at Ettore Messina in San Antonio. He's been with Popovich for several years now. He can work with veterans. Or if I don't get Jerry West, I look at Mark Jackson. I think Mark Jackson deserves another shot, would be good with veterans. And then keep the core, re-sign Blake and Chris, and maybe move on.
Re-sign Blake?
Yeah, now maybe to keep him or to trade him.
Trade him.
Maybe, but I'd bring him back. He's an asset.
I'm not big in calling for guys' jobs, right? But one of Doc's hats has to go. As far as him controlling who the players are coming in, step down from that and focus on what you do best, and that's being a coach. And you have to get players in there, though. Right now, he hasn't been getting the right players in there. They don't have a three that can play, they have a three that can lightweight guard, but can't really play. Can't put the ball in the hole. And as far as the guys quitting on him, it was tied 24-24 after the first quarter. They just turned the ball over in the second quarter. They had a horrible second quarter. And Utah just kept playing, and we got to give credit to Utah, too. That's a steady team. They have the right pieces in the right places.
They took it in L.A.,
one of the best road teams in the NBA, though, as well. So this is nothing new what Utah
Doc
does.
has now lost 9 playoff series where he had a lead in games won. That's an NBA record.
That is a record.
I always felt Doc was a little like Joe Torre in baseball. It wasn't about the X's and O's. It was about dealing with egos. Joe was a former player, had a losing record before he got the Yankees, but he could handle A-Rod. And a lot of times that'll just overwhelm a Bobby Valentine. I don't think Doc is, I wouldn't classify him in the Carlisle, Brad Stevens. I do think there's value with Doc, though. My understanding is he and Chris Paul, he kind of lets Chris kind of run things. But I do think you get to a point with any business. I almost think they're keeping Blake because he's got good commercials. I'm serious here.
It's also an entertainment business, too.
But Blake Griffin's a brand play.
Well, you got to sell tickets.
I know, and when you're in the same building as the Lakers, Blake drives some ticket sales.
And I think that's an important point. I think if the Clippers want to move forward, they got to get out the building and stop playing second fiddle to the Lakers. The Lakers are a bad team. They've been garbage for a while, but they're still the #1 team in LA. Yeah. You go to that locker room. The home locker room in Staples Center for the LA Clippers is a glorified visiting locker room.
Gotcha.
It's true.
Great point. Colin, I want to give you another name for the Clippers TV show, Breaking Bad. to Boston, where the top-seeded Celtics went down 16-0 to start the game against the Wizards, but fought tooth and nail to come all the way back. Boston shot the lights out in the second half and ended up with a double-digit win over John Wall and company. Colin, were you impressed with that comeback?
I got to be honest. I thought it was a fluke. I thought it was a fluke. First of all, when Morris got hurt in the second half, Brad Stevens went in and said, okay, Horford and Jay Crowder, they're defensive tough guys out. They'll never play like that in the second half.
But they only had a 3-point lead at that point. It's not like they were still running the
Listen,
table.
they'll never shoot threes like that.
Thank you.
That was, by Warrior standards, epic.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there watching Al Horford, and I'm watching. And
Jay
I'm like,
Crowder, 6 of 8 from 3.
I'm like, come on. I mean, listen, some of this is just, we've seen injuries change series. Rondo, Blake Griffin. I thought when the...
Don't say Markieff Morris.
I'm not saying
those two names.
He said that earlier.
You
said that earlier.
I like Markieff Morris. I'll defend him. I've known him since Kansas.
Come on.
He's something.
But that wasn't the reason why they
Jordan,
lost.
LeBron, Kyle Korver. I mean, come on.
I thought Chauncey Billups made a great point. Sometimes that kind of start the game is actually bad for the team that got out to that hard start, because they relax and they get away from what they were doing and thinking, oh, Mike, we took control early. And so I think this was a total fluke. I'm not saying, look, Markieff Morris is going to be hobbling around, but when Washington has a size advantage and when Washington was moving the ball and moving the players as effectively, I thought they were the better team than Boston. I thought his injury was...
Washington has more good players.
Yeah, they do. They were the better team. What happened was Boston was really good, shot the lights out the ball, but Washington was just as bad. 7 turnovers in the third quarter. That's horrible. Then they had four of their 5 possessions were very bad possessions to start the third quarter. Gortat had the jump hook left, air ball, led into a basket. Then they turned the ball over 3 straight times. You can't do that when you gave the team all this momentum, and that's exactly what happened. And they just fed off the crowd, and that Boston crowd is second to none. Once they get going, you could get going as well, but you got to give credit to Brad Stevens for doing one thing, taking Gerald Green out the game and inserting Marcus Smart, and he started him in the second half. That was a big-time move right there to trust your players, and also that Gerald Green was not going to be a cancer over there. He wants to win, so I think you got to applaud him for making that move at that time.
Stevens has been pushing all the right buttons since they went down 0-2. You know, putting Gerald Green in the starting lineup.
What a great move by Stevens.
It took guts to put Gerald Green in the starting lineup. Right. And now, like you said, yesterday he goes with Marcus Smart. I'm with you guys in that I think Washington is better and will win this, but I think it's going to be a series. I don't think it's 4-1. Yeah, I think it's 7, maybe a tough 6. But
so you don't think you think it's totally coincidental that their tough forward goes out and the Celtics' 2 average forwards light it up?
As good as he is, but that
wasn't still 16-0 or 22-5 when he went out. It was 45-42 when Morris got hurt. So they already were charging at the Wizards even with Morris there. Look, he's a good, valuable player for them, but if they can't win the series without Markieff Morris, then they don't deserve to win the series.
They're not that deep. They need...
They're not deep at all.
Gortat did not show up in the second half. He played fantastic in the first half and was MIA the second half.
And John Wall backed up a little bit. John Wall started out the game, I thought, very strong. I still believe John Wall's the best player in this series and the second best player in the East.
Although Isaiah is starting, like, at some point we're going to have to give him more credit.
By the way, John Wall's a great player and he's better than Isaiah. But Isaiah, as a scorer, John's career average in this league is 19. His playoff average is 20. He is a big, strong, physical guard.
How about what Isaiah has been going through to come up and show up and then get your tooth knocked out your head, right? And still have the time.
I don't want to hear nothing about
Wynn picked it up and gave it to the dude like, oh, we're gonna get this fixed later, okay? And then the way he played and he got into the teeth of the defense. He didn't. No pun intended. But, you know, he did get into the teeth of the defense, and they put on a dribble, pass, and kick.
They were great.
And you're right, they're not going to shoot like that again.
No, but
Avery Bradley has been very good the last 3 games, too. 21 points a game. If he's scoring like that, he and Isaiah can match Wall and Beal, and Washington has to dominate the backcourt match.
Ask yourself, of all the playoff teams left, who are the 1 or 2 you don't think have a great roster? Utah, Boston. Yeah. Some of this is Brad Stevens is a really good coach.
And we have a bias, at least I do. Isaiah Thomas just seems too small to me.
I agree, but
that's the vibe.
At some point, we got to give him credit.
Welcome back. Chris Carter, Joel Klatt back again. Let's return to the draft. I love the draft. Where the Browns took Notre Dame quarterback Deshaun Kizer in the second round, with coach Hugh Jackson saying Kizer will compete for Cleveland's starting job this year. That ain't saying much, considering the Browns have had 26 starting quarterbacks since 1999, including 3 last year. All right, Whitlock, you buying Kizer as the Browns' quarterback of the future?
Why not? Second-round pick. Joel's #1 quarterback in the draft, played at Notre Dame. Now, listen, he's not a first-round talent, or he got drafted in the first round, but I think Hugh's going to run him out there and give him every opportunity to perform and win that job.
If I said to you, who are the great quarterbacks in this league 10 years? It doesn't matter, varying grades. Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Most of it starts shoulders up. They are completely willful-driven people. Brady's ridiculous. Breeze is ridiculous. Russell Wilson's been doubted his whole life. Yeah. Neck up matters a lot for that position. It's not about big arm strength and size. Let me read this quote to you. An unnamed scout criticized Deshaun Kizer, telling Bob McGinn, great journalist in Green Bay, Kaiser's a millennial. He's caught up on being more of a quarterback image than being a quarterback. If that's even 10% of your personality, I'm Seacrest out. This is not going to work.
There's some red flags or he would have got drafted in the first round. We have our resident scout here.
His potential is through the roof, okay? Highest potential of any quarterback in the draft. And that's even with Patrick Mahomes. Now, there's certainly concerns about the personality, how much he loves football. And, yes, that's a huge red flag for me as well. I get it. I get all those things. Now, the thing that no one is talking about is the fact that there's still only 2 ways to win a Super Bowl. 2. And it's defined year in and year out. You better have a great defense. And I'm talking about Denver Broncos, great with Von Miller. Seattle Seahawks, great with the Legion of Boom. Baltimore, great with Ray Lewis. You better have that level of defense and roster.
That's what stopped Atlanta from winning.
Or
one stop. If they could get one defensive stop.
Or a Hall of Fame quarterback. Okay, so am I saying Kaiser's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback? Not really. Can he be Brad Johnson, Joe Flacco, one of these guys, Brock Osweiler while he was at Denver? Maybe. And if you're using your picks correctly, which I think Cleveland did, you can build a roster that's potentially a Super Bowl roster. They get 3 first-round picks plus add another first-rounder for next year. So they got 2 first-rounders in 2018, 3 second-rounders in 2018. They're on the precipice with Paul DePodesta and Sashi Brown of building one of those Seattle-type rosters that can overcome quarterback deficiencies. If you've got one of those rosters, can Kizer be your guy? Absolutely.
I'm only signing off if the Cleveland Browns management guarantees me that Hugh Jackson's going to be there for at least 2 more seasons. That would give him at least 3 seasons being the head, 2 years working with it. I believe Hugh, he has the ingredients to be able to whisper in a quarterback's ear and make that guy better than he actually is. I believe the kid does have talent. But, man, this is about positioning. Real estate, where do you buy? What time do you buy? It's a bad time to be in Cleveland. So for me, I'm concerned about the locker room and the overall winning culture that's around the kid. He's going to get hit in the face a bunch. And, Joel, you'll know this. You guys don't like that.
No.
This is the Speak For Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I am your host, Jason McIntyre. We're here all week, folks. Make sure you check us out on all the podcast apps, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Don't forget, hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and hey, leave a comment, will you? One last note, I love the Cowboys draft. I love the Cowboys schedule. I love the Cowboys next year more than Skip Bayless does. I cannot believe the over-under on the Cowboys next year is 9.5. People are still sleeping on Dak Prescott. Are you kidding me? How about them Cowboys? See you tomorrow.